Hey everybody, Jen Hatmaker here, your happy host of the For the Love podcast. Oh guys, welcome to the show. I'm tickled that you're here today. You're going to be too. We're in the middle of a series called For the Love of Food. Insert all my obvious feelings about food. Food people, kitchens, tables, recipes. I love it all. I really love it all. So this whole series is right exactly in my wheelhouse. But today you guys are going to be really tickled about my guest and what a freaking delight she is. Let's talk about this real quick. I know that for a lot of you, baking will take you immediately to a happy place. I know there's a ton of you out there. This is what you do. This is what you're good at. Flipping the oven on, getting your hands into a bowl of dough. It's like therapy. It's like self-care. Even meditation sometimes, right? It uses a lot of your senses. It's delicious. You get an incredible homemade treat at the end of it. It's something to do with your family, with your kids. I get it. I get it. So whether or not you are an accomplished baker or not, it does not matter, because my guest today is someone who's not only a master baker, but a master at using her baking and her sparkling personality, to be honest with you, to show love to her family, to her friends, and to us, because we get to watch her and read her cookbooks. I am so thrilled to have on the show today the one and only Nadiya Hussain. Listen. I mean, if you're a Great British Bake Off watcher, then you know that Nadiya's human sunshine, one of the most talented bakers out there. She won season 6 of the show. And by the way, if you've never seen Bake Off, then the very minute you are done with this podcast, literally run to Netflix. I'm not kidding. The amount of people in my life that love Bake Off, it runs the gamut. And it's not all food. You don't have to love food and cooking. It is, I don't even know what to say. If you're new to it, just please trust me, and you can tell me later, Jen, you were right. And then when you're done with Bake Off, go watch Nadiya's brand new Netflix show called Nadiya Bakes, where she not only shows off her excellent baking skills, but shares in a really manageable way all the recipes, while literally being kind of the Mary Poppins of baking. She really is practically perfect in every way. I'm not kidding. So as if she was not busy enough filming these wonderful shows for us or writing cookbooks like Time to Eat, and her latest that is coming out in the US this summer, I just mentioned it, called Nadiya Bakes, but you can already watch that on Netflix now. She is a wife and a mom of 3 incredible kids. And we're going to talk about them too. She's just lovely. I loved this conversation with her. I wanted it to go on and on and on. She's exactly what you would hope for those of you who are big Nadiya fans. And so delighted to share my conversation with the very wonderful Nadiya Hussain. Nadiya, welcome to the For the Love podcast. I speak for me and my whole listening community. We are absolutely delighted that you're on the show. Delighted.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
We love you. So let's start here. I don't have to tell you this, obviously, but this past year has been a real doozy. It has been a year that has never ended. So obviously you're based in the UK. Can you just tell us for a little bit, before we get into it all, what your experience has been like? What's it like in your home? Who's there? What has it looked like for you and your family over the last year and even now?
There are very few adjectives to really describe what we're going through, but to say it's been hideous is just, it's been so hideous at times. Yeah. But so I'm at home with my 3 kids, 2 teenagers, boys 14 and 13, and my little girl is 10. My husband, who works from home. So for him, if anything else, when this when this first happened and we went into our first lockdown, he was like, "You guys are in my space."
Totally.
Because he was used to me being away and the kids being at school most of the day, and it was him and the cat. And so the two people in our house, the two living beings in our house, my husband and my cat, were like, what's going on?
Yeah.
We don't need you lot in our space. So that was a massive, I think from all of us, that has been the biggest adjustment, is adjusting in our space and finding some balance in making it a workspace as well as making it a fun space and a home.
Absolutely. Same
I think
here.
the first time around, that was the biggest thing for us, because it was hard to switch off from working because work was right there. And so sometimes I could be away filming, but at least when I come home, I don't have to think about that so much. So I can just kind of step away from it. There was no stepping away from it. And I think that's where the lines got really blurred, where's home life, where's work life? And it was really tough early on. But I think we're just starting to kind of really adjust to it. And that I hope that now that we're adjusting, we can go back to some sort of normality at some point.
Oh, me too. Gosh. The same here. All of a sudden I'm like, why am I working at 10:45 at night? Well, because here's my laptop, work never ends. None of our work ever ends. So there's always work to be done. And so, yes, absolutely same. And my kids have struggled too, to now have this be their classroom. It's just, we're all essentially let's just get to the end of the school year. I get like in front of them and go, guys, can we just make it to May? Is there any way you guys I've got 2 in high school, just get over the freaking finish line, and maybe life returns to us this fall. I don't know. Is that what you're hearing over there?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of that. I think it's like there is the finish line and we see it, and we talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's something that I was talking about very recently, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but for now we can't see that light. But what we have to do is start to adjust our eyes to the dark. And that's what we're doing. It's like, let's adjust our eyes to the dark. Let's try and live as we are and try and enjoy each moment. But we have to be, I'm really open with my kids about the fact that I'm struggling, but they're struggling too. And they have to be open about that. And we need to talk about that. So my 14-year-old crept into my bed and he said, just, my heart hurts. My heart hurts, Mum. And I felt so sorry for him. I said, look, I made that heart inside of me, and that took 9 months. Don't let one pandemic destroy you, okay? We're going to get over this and we're going to be fine. And so it's a lot of reassuring words that we have to tell our kids, but we mustn't forget to kind of tell ourselves the same thing.
That's such good advice. So how has it been for you? Obviously, food is a huge part of your life, your work, your love. But now, pandemic wise, it's all home all the time. And so I'm curious, how have you been coping in the kitchen? Like, has your relationship with your time in the kitchen shifted or adjusted? Has there been a moment where you're like, look, this food is my work and now I hate it. Now I hate this kitchen. I hate this knife. I hate this spatula. I want somebody else to come in this kitchen with a spatula and cook something for these people.
No, if I would be lying if I said to you that I love being in there all the time.
Sure.
And for the most part, pre-pandemic, absolutely loved it. Any
same.
excuse to get in the kitchen, always. But I'm quite tired. I feel like I've become because I'm in there all the time, constantly using leftovers, constantly trying to make things, trying to reduce our trips to the shop. So making sure that I have everything in and trying to use things up. So because there's so much thinking involved, there are days when I look at it and I just think, oh gosh, can we just not? I do. I step back and I think I would rather be doing something else right now. Yeah. But it's, old habits die hard.
Yeah,
I'm in there. Before you know it, I've mopped the floor and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, the kitchen's clean. I could just make a banana bread and I'll just go in there and make some banana bread. So it's old habits die hard. Honestly, I'm so very much chain and balled to my kitchen. I love being in there. But there are moments where I just think, oh, I can't be bothered with this.
Oh, yeah. My daughter is 20 and she's a student at the University of Texas, which is here in town, but she lives on campus. And so she was coming home last night for dinner with her 2 best friends. I've known them since they were babies. And I texted her at maybe like 5:15 or so. And I said, what time are you guys going to be here? You almost here. Dinner's about ready. She's like, Mom, it's 5:15. I'm like, well, apparently I just went in the kitchen at 4 because that's what I do. I go in there and I start making, and before you know it, we're having dinner like in the 5 o'clock hour. So hurry up and get here. Let me ask you this, Nadiya, for my listeners who are fascinated with you, and also for those who are learning about you just today. Can you talk a little bit about your history with food? Because I noticed that a lot of food people, we come to the table from very different spaces. Some of us grew up with it. Some of us have like brilliant moms and grandmas and aunts who cooked for us. Some of us were self-taught. It's not one story. Was food and cooking a big part of your family life? How did you get to where you are?
Well, if I go back as far as I can remember, I grew up with an amazing grandma. I was raised by my mom, my dad, and my grandma. They, because I had two siblings that were very poorly, so we spent a lot of time with my grandma, and she had a hand in raising us. So I spent a lot of time watching my grandma cook, but they're very no fuss cooks, like they get in, they cook, they get out. They don't do it for love. They do it because it's necessity.
Utilitarian. Yep.
Yeah. It's necessity, and it's to feed the family. There's a job to be done, and that's what they do. And so, mom, again, amazing cook. When I say family, I'm one of 6, but when we have the extended family, when we used to have the extended family around as kids, that was like 50 something people in a small terraced house. So eating, cooking, being together in the kitchen was very much a part of growing up, whether it was at my house or at a relative's house. It was very food focused, and all very traditional Bangladeshi stovetop recipes. And then my dad ran restaurants his whole life. So I was used to being between our home kitchen and the stainless steel kitchen at the back of a restaurant. So the kind of the noise and the buzz of being in a working kitchen, I was used to that, whether it was me just sat in a corner on a bucket peeling garlic, or whether it was me helping to wash the dishes, or whether it was me trying to take orders, whatever it was, I kind of went. That was my world. We were between those two. For me, it was between those two worlds. But, growing up, I was never encouraged to cook by my mum. She never said you had to cook, because for her, it was necessity. And she hated being in the kitchen. She'd be great at it, but she was in there so much that she just kind of wanted to get the job done and get out. So she just said, whatever you do, never cook. Never. She said, don't make cooking your living. So once I said to my mom, I think I'm going to be a chef. And she just said, no, you're not. No, you're not. You just cook for your kids and that's it. So, but my dad's quite experimental and quite adventurous in the kitchen.
Sure.
And so he would be using weird combinations and mucking around in the kitchen, which I absolutely loved. So I think I growing up in a immigrant household. I kind of went from eating British food to cooking Bangladeshi food and eating Bangladeshi food at home. So I suppose somewhere in between all of that, I became quite used to that kind of fusing the two cultures together. But baking really never happened for me. And that's, I suppose that's what I'm best known for is winning Bake Off in 2015. And baking never really came to me till much later in life, because I never realized that, because my parents didn't bake. It was always stovetop, never in anything. And my mum, funny thing is, my mum used to store all her frying pans in the oven because she never used it. And I felt completely betrayed by her when I was in home ec at school, when I was doing food studies, and the teacher makes this cake and she pops it into the oven. And I was looking at her like she was mad. And I said, hold on a second, that's the cupboard. And she's like, hold on a second, that's the oven. So she looked at me like I was completely alien. And I looked at her like she was an alien. And then I went home and I ripped everything out of my mum's oven. And I said, you've been lying to me this whole time. And she said, no, I just didn't tell you. You didn't know. So
that's great.
I never baked. So I didn't then bake till I was in my 20s when I got married, had my own house and my kid, and I had my son, and I had my own space. And so I was kind of in control for the first time as a young adult. And I didn't have a mom telling me that I couldn't use up the eggs, or I couldn't be in the kitchen. And I found freedom. And I suppose for me, I found freedom in baking for the first time in my life. And sort of 10 years later, I honed in on this skill that I hadn't realized would ultimately lead me here today.
I mean, I'll say you made a good choice. Let's just go ahead and say you reached for the right oven. Yes. So I want to talk about the show a little bit. The world largely got to know you after your time on Great British Bake Off. But we saw your journey through the tent, which is just so, it's everybody's favorite show in the world. I don't have a friend or a person in my entire environment who does not absolutely love the show. We saw you get the winning cake pedestal, but it was not a walk in the park. That's for damn sure. So can you just, I know you've talked about it a ton, but we're dying of curiosity. Can you tell us about your time in the tent? What was your experience like? What did we not see? And how did your confidence change as the weeks went on and you just kept making it?
Yeah, I didn't enter Bake Off my own back. It wasn't something that I wanted to ever do. And it was one of the shows that we would watch. I never wanted to do it. And
really?
I would watch. Yeah, never. The thought had never crossed my mind. Never. Just would not have the confidence to do something. I didn't ever have the confidence to. I didn't even know I didn't have the confidence because I never even toyed with the idea of ever doing anything like it. So my husband, like as husbands do, he would watch it with me. Really, he didn't want to watch it. He didn't want to be there because he didn't get to eat any of the cakes. He was like, this is dull because we watch make cake and we don't get to eat any of it. And he would sit there and say, oh, you could do that, or you've made that, but yours is better. And he would make comments, like passing comments, didn't think anything of it. And in 2014, when at the end of the series where they say you can apply, my husband obviously got the idea then. And he did the online application, but couldn't fill in the technical bits like baking knowledge.
Sure.
So he just said, so I've done this thing and the deadline's in 2 days. Please just do it. Humor me. Go on, humor me.
No way.
And I said, absolutely no way. And his reasoning behind it was sweet, yet completely ridiculous.
Sure.
At the time, I was suffering with anxiety and I was struggling with my mental health. And he just said, I think you need to do something for you because you've spent a decade just looking after us. And I just think that you need to do something for yourself. Wow. And that was his reasoning. Ridiculous, really, because with somebody who's suffering with mental health issues, you don't put them on the biggest baking show.
Sure. Full of pressure and competition and cameras and right. Yeah. That would be my first reach.
That was exactly, it's like call a doctor.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Take up jogging. I don't know.
Get a pet. Anything.
Yes.
But he decided that that's what we should do. And he just said, I think you should do it. And I kind of said, no, I'm not doing it. And he said, go on, humor me. Just do it. And like 5 years later, I'm just saying he spends a lot of time with the kids. So I definitely got the last laugh. Definitely got the last laugh.
Absolutely.
But one of the things with the show is like, and I think lots of people watched it and kind of came on that journey with me because I went from being really nervous, kind of slowly growing. And I could see myself growing in the show. I didn't at the time. I didn't see it at the time. But when I've watched it back, I've seen myself grow gently, slowly. And anyone who knows me knows that whenever I wear, I would pretty much always wear, now I wear much more bright colors, but back then I would only wear a black scarf and my scarf reflected my mood. And there was 1 week where I wore a green scarf and everyone was like, oh, she's feeling good. So I could always look at that point and so I think lots of people went on that journey with me. And one thing loads of people don't see, you asked me, you said, is there anything that you can tell us that happens behind the scene? One thing nobody sees is that there are these, I call them, they're the 10 elves. And they're on their hands and knees.
Oh,
they're on their hands and knees and they kind of, because you can't see them, because there's like space that they can film and there's space that you cannot be in. And so the dead space where you can be, there are little employees, 10 elves that walk around and they kind of like, they're on their knees asking you, do you need this pan anymore? If not, can I take it to the back to wash it? And you're like, yep, okay. And they kind of crawl around and take the dishes and they ask you, do you want a tea or do you want a coffee? And it's like, they signal things to you. It's so cool. You don't have time for tea or coffee. You're just too stressed. But,
sure.
That's what nobody sees is the little scent elves that help you to keep things tidy and give you tea and coffee.
Oh my word. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and think about that first week. I mean, it must have already been shocking to even be chosen for the show. I mean, there's so many applicants. And then especially if you kind of thought, whatever, I'll humor my husband, I'll fill it out, I'll send it in, nothing will even come of it, it's fine. Then boom, you're on the show. Then boom, there's all these cameras, it's real, it's happening. Were you just, that first week, did you just think, I'm going to throw up? I can't,
it was horrendous.
I cannot imagine.
Because you become once you go through the interview process, and the interview process is something like 6 months long. It's really long.
Gosh.
Really long. Lots of traveling with cakes and bakes, as if that's not stressful enough, where you have to, traveling with cake is the worst thing.
I can't even think of what that means. My brain has no concept of this.
No. So, when I make a cake for someone and just the transporting it from A to B is stressful enough.
Yes.
But there's lots of interview processes really, really long. So when you actually get to the point where you're filming the show, there is that moment where I said to myself that I wouldn't say it, but I looked at the tent for the first time. I was like, smaller than I imagined, slightly disappointed. Can I just say? Slightly disappointing.
Medium.
It's like, meh. Yeah. But there's that moment where you see all the cameras and all the people and all the kind of bells and whistles that go with making television. But there is a point, and I don't know when exactly that was, where it's probably from the moment they say ready, steady, bake.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that I would be so determined. And I think that's something I learned about myself, was that I'm quite competitive, and I'm not competitive with people around me. It's competition with myself. Like, nice. It's like, am I always doing the best that I can do? Am I always being the best that I can be? And I think every time they said ready, steady, bake, I was like, oh God, time to be the best. That was my moment.
Yeah.
And at that moment, when you're so engrossed in baking, you actually forget that there are 4 cameras on you, or that you're midway through a bake at a crucial point and somebody's asking you questions, and you're like, just seriously, leave me alone. I hate you now. Don't talk to me. You're just like, why are you talking to me right now? When really you're trying to talk, but your concentration is totally on the other.
Absolutely.
So, I think there's a moment of naivety where you forget about the cameras, and then it's that moment when you finish filming that you realize that everyone's going to watch it.
Yes. And also, what did I even say? What did I say? What did I do? I don't remember. It's a fever dream of, I don't even remember a second of it. When you were on Bake Off, was there a particular task, an assignment, a baking assignment, where you thought, I really don't know if I can do this. I do not know if I can do this when I don't have this experience, or I don't know how to do this. And then you pulled it off in a way you were like, wow, that went way better than I thought it was going to go. And super, super proud of that moment.
Yeah, there was this moment because I was really bad at the technical challenges. So I would come really low down. And week 1, I was right at the bottom. So I was like, oh gosh. And I remember when I first made it to the show, my husband said, okay, so now you've made it, no pressure, but don't get kicked out week 1, because that would be really embarrassing. I'm like, this isn't helping. This is not helping.
Right.
You are not helping. So,
yes.
I mean, how we've survived another 6 years of marriage, I don't know. But you're not helping me right now. He goes, because if you're on, I want to be able to say that you at least made it to week 4. And I was like, no, not helping me. So there was this one. So I was doing really badly in the technicals, and I thought, oh, this is just how I'm making it through this. I'm making it through. I don't know. Yeah. And there was a week where we made gluten-free pita bread.
Oh gosh.
And I recognized an ingredient, which is psyllium husk, which they put in the gluten-free. And I was like, why do I recognize this? And I remember it's because I had to mix up that gluten for my dad for good digestive health. Anyway, but I don't want to be on here talking about my dad's digestive.
I'm sure he doesn't want you to either.
No, exactly. Yeah. That's no fun. But I remember looking at the ingredient for the first time. I was like, oh, I recognize this ingredient. And that was nice. I was like, and that gave me a little boost of confidence, because nobody else did. did. And I was like, oh, I know what this is. And I made these pita breads that were baked and puffy, perfectly shaped with a little pocket in the middle. And I got first in technical. And that first week, and I was like, oh, and that gave me the tiny little kind of little push, the little kind of push of encouragement that I needed. But that all came crashing down when in pastry week, because it was just hideous.
Oh my gosh. And you know, when us as watchers, when we watch it, we are in the tent. I'm there. I'm hot or cold, whichever one it is. I'm stressed. I wish they'd stop talking to you in the middle of your work. Right. I just want to tell the host, get away from her. Yeah. Get away from her. She's sweating. The thing didn't rise. The crust fell apart. Leave her the freak alone right now. It takes us with you in this very magical way. It's just
really consuming. I find it really consuming, even as a viewer. Even now, I completely am consumed and totally on that journey with them. Like Yes, I am there. Yes. I am heartbroken and I am thrilled. It's just it's so clever the way that show is both designed and produced. And it's a gentle version of competition that still makes me feel violently competitive and nervous and anxious with everybody. It's so fun. I just have to hear from you what it felt like to win the damn thing. Yeah. I mean, can you believe it? You barely even applied. You barely even did it. Your husband made you do it. Yeah. And then you won the damn thing. Honestly, I just want to burst out laughing. Yeah, it does make me laugh even now. Yes. I find it absolutely hilarious when I hear it out loud, because loads of people ask me all the time, like, did you know you were going to win? And it's like, no, because no, I didn't. And I always get asked lots of questions. Was there any prize money? Oh, did you know you were going to win? Yeah. And also, did you write that speech? Oh, so the bit at the end. Yeah. And I was like, no to all of those. No. Yep. But yeah, you just can't. I mean, can you imagine like us having this conversation, and like I can see how emotionally invested you are in the show, because that's exactly what happens. And you you become emotionally invested in your bakes, in the people that you end up with. And as the tent gets bigger and we lose the contestants and the group gets smaller, you become more invested in your friendships.
Sure.
Right up to the end. And there's so much of that I was like, at the end, you could hear a pin drop in that tent, because we were all so nervous, but we were also willing each other on so much.
Sure. We wanted, I love it.
Like, if all three of us could have won and walked away, we would have been really happy. But we were so emotionally invested in each other that winning didn't even come into it. And so I remember the first two bakes, I did really, really well. And we got down to the restaurant. We were in the hotel and we were having dinner together, and we all just sat there really quietly. And we didn't want to say it, because we knew that if I'd done well in that last bake, that I would get it. And also we knew, we were very aware of the fact that it's all very short-lived. So you could have one really good bake and one really good day, but you could have a disastrous bake the next day. Totally. And that's it. You're out of the running completely. So all three of us were well aware of that. And also we're really good friends, and we'd spent so much time together. And that was, for me, at the end, it was, I remember being completely just in this bubble. And when all three of us Tamal and Ian and I were stood there at the end, and we were holding hands. And all I could think was, better put these shoes in the wash, because there's icing sugar all over them. That's all I could think.
That's your thought.
Yeah, nothing else. No, my thoughts didn't go to winning. And then that was that moment, and I heard my name. And I remember just kind of hiding like this. I remember hiding and then looking up. And then somebody said, Paul came up to me and gave me the trophy. And I said, are you sure you haven't made a mistake? Are you sure you don't want to give it to Tamal or Ian? And he said, nobody has ever asked me that. He said, no, it's yours. You've won. And so I remember kind of being completely shocked by it. And then somebody said, you made Mary cry. And I was like, Like, I shouldn't even be proud of that. But secretly, I am just a tiny bit.
Of course you are. She's immovable.
And she came up to me and she was like wiping my tears away. It was just, she's the loveliest human in the whole world.
I love to hear that. And I love that you just got to look into Paul's dreamy eyes and take your award. What's going on with his eyes? Golly.
They're very blue.
They're so blue. Just very unbelievable.
Just not my type. Just not my type. He's someone's type, just not mine.
He's someone's type. You could just look at him from afar and be like, somebody would like that. Somebody would think that was handsome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, there's a ton of us out here. We're like, they're so pretty. What was your favorite game when you were a kid? I can sure think of a few. I would sit at my grandma's table for hours with her and my Grandpa King and play dominoes, specifically chicken foot, represent. Well, guess what? It's 100% okay to play games as an adult. I still love them. And I'll tell you one of my favorites. It's called Best Fiends. Okay, so Best Fiends is a super fun puzzle game, and there's really nothing else like it out there. I can hop in there for a bit and a different part of my brain switches on as I'm solving these puzzles. I love using that side of my brain. Plus, they're adding more levels and challenges all the time, so it stays fresh and new. I'm actually obsessed. So engage your brain with fun puzzles, and trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this mobile puzzle game with a 5-star rating is a must play. You'll be really, really happy that you get it. So download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. So that's like friends without the R. Best Fiends. Do you know what's saving my life right now? Making time to talk to my counselor. I'm serious. I mean, even when it feels hard, even when I don't want to, some weeks, I always feel better after I take an hour and talk to her about how to move forward. You can start making time to talk to a counselor today too, with my sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp matches you with a counselor, and you can send them a message anytime and get a really timely and thoughtful response back. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions with your counselor, and you never have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. BetterHelp is committed to getting you the help that you need. So they make it easy and free to change counselors if you need to. I want you to start living a happier, healthier life today. So as my listener, you can get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/forthelove. So join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/forthelove. Okay, back to our show. So I love hearing you talk about this. And so I want to talk about this now because obviously Bake Off was a real important front door for you. This was a huge shift in what now your opportunities are. And so you have the greatest, happiest cooking show now I have ever seen. I really do love everything about Nadiya Bakes. I was watching it last week with my mom, and we were both just like, God, we love her. Like, we just love her. They picked the right girl to hand this show to. All of it.
Say hi to your mom for me. Say hi to your mom.
I can't. This is going to be insane. She'll freak out. Like just all of it, the food, the music, your spirit, your nails, everything about it is just pitch perfect. Yeah. And so I'd love to hear you talk about the show a little bit, how that came to be, how much control do you have over the show? Did you have your own ideas? Did you come and say, this is what I want it to look like? This is what I don't want it to look like? You know, because there's a template. There's a food show template that I am assuming some of the networks want to say, let's just plug this in. It's a tried and true formula. So did you come to the table and say, if I'm going to do this, and by the way, how did that come about? I want to hear that. This is what I'd like it to look like, feel like, be like.
Yeah, I think it's a work in progress because, you know, I've only been working in this industry for 6 years, and it's taken me some time to find the confidence to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. It's not so easy when you don't know the industry. It hasn't always been easy just to go in and say, this is what I want, this is what I like. Because the truth is, I have to quite often have my hands held and guided and know my options. And so I feel so fortunate that I I was able to, because the end goal was never a career. The end goal was never to come away from this with a job, let alone a career. And so, you know, and I think it's safe to say that I have a career in the food industry now.
It's safe to say. Yeah.
It was never my intention, but when I got these opportunities to do my first cookery show, which, I mean, this is my third one, the one that you guys have seen. And so like I've done previous cookery shows, and they were all a kind of a work in progress for me. So it took me a while to learn what I like, what I don't like. And you know, you've got to be bad to be good. So, you know, I had to make mistakes to learn. So there were things that I did previously that I was like, no, that's not me. That's not who I want to be.
Like what did you discover? This is a thing that I don't love.
Just things like what we have on set, how the set is, you know, the kitchen, how it's decorated, and how I would have it in my own home, because we film in different locations all the time. So we've got the luxury of changing it up, how I want to change it up. And so I am all over sort of colors, prints, and it has to be things that that I would have in my own home. In fact, some of the stuff that goes onto kitchen sets are things that come from my kitchen. Whether it's my egg baskets or my mugs or my tea towels, they will all come. And there's bits, family heirlooms and things that I like to put into the kitchen. So for me, that's really important. You know, that's a really big part of the overall kind of end result. And also simple things like my nails, simple things like my clothes, they matter to me, because for me, you know, when I'm happy, I wear bright, colorful clothes, and they are an expression of who I am. And everything I cook, from what I cook to the set to what I wear, is an expression of who I am. And I want people, whether they are comfortable in the kitchen, whether they're a novice cook, whether they're expert cooks, when they watch the show, I want them to smile. I want it to make them happy. And I have to say, I watch it back and it makes me smile, because, you know, and often I cringe watching myself on telly, but when I get the odd glimpse and I watch it back and I see my kids smiling and I smile, I'm like, this is it. This is what it's all about. And it is so important to me because, you know, growing up in a immigrant household, I never watched somebody like me on mainstream television. And I also understand the importance of doing something like that, because there are little versions of me all around the country, all around the world, who will see me and say, hey, this is normal. This is okay. And we can occupy that space. And that's really important to me too, as much as the food and the color and making people happy.
Oh, that's really special. Do you hear from girls and women who say, oh, you are representing me now in network space, and you are, that representation matters, and it must feel like a special responsibility to be the one to kind of be out front and say, look, hey, this is so possible. This is possible for you, for anybody. I actually love that. I'm thrilled at your success for a million reasons, but that's a big one. That's a huge one.
It's a big responsibility. To be called a role model is a big responsibility. And I don't often say that word. Just like I don't let it just roll off my tongue, because I understand the responsibility of being a role model. Because when I had my children, my aim in life ultimately was just to be a good role model to my children and my nephews and nieces. But that role has extended somewhat now.
Totally.
And you know, I love doing my job, and I love cooking, and I love baking. I love the fact that I have this platform in which to share all of these recipes. But you know, 6 years later, you know, if you spoke to me about being a first generation British growing up in an immigrant house and spoke to me about representation, I wouldn't have been as comfortable to talk about it. I would not have been as comfortable talking about it, because for me, I wanted to be able to just be good at my craft and just be good at what I do. But I understand the responsibility that I have, because I know growing up, I never saw anyone like me on television. And I just assumed that everybody lived a life like Delia's, and the one I lived was just the one I lived, and the people around me lived like that, and everyone else lived Delia's life. And so that for me was like a massive shift for me. And I understand the responsibility now, and it does weigh heavy on me because it is tough, and my little shoulders can't always kind of take that weight. But in those days where I feel really down and I question why I'm doing it, I ask my, it's a question I've asked myself since I was a little girl, was, if I don't see me, do I exist? And that is a question lots of people, lots of women, children, immigrants will look at publishing, television, workspaces, and say, if I don't see myself in this space, do I even exist? And it's time we existed. I think it's time we said out loud and proud that we are here, we exist, and we're just like everybody else, and we can have fun, and we can we can have fun, and we can enjoy being in the kitchen just like anyone else. And I think that to create that space and totally make it normal for someone like me to be on television makes my job much bigger than just a job, much bigger than just a career. It's about representation and being the right role model.
Well said and well done. And you are a wonderful role model. And I can only imagine how many girls aspire to have new aspirations simply by virtue of seeing somebody like you in the spotlight, wildly successful and having fun. It's great. The possibility is endless. It's fantastic. I'm curious, as you moved from a competition show, a competition bake-off, which is its own brand. It's got its own rhythms. And then you move into cooking shows where you're the person. Totally different deal. Having a different relationship to the camera, to the audience. You're now the guide. You are the leader. What did you find, like, immediately? What was harder than you thought about transitioning from being one competitor among many, where you're not the host, to now you are the main person in more of an instruction sort of format? What did you love the most? And then what was like, whoa, that took a lot of practice to get right?
One thing I learned was the very first thing I learned was, and realized very quickly, was there's nowhere to hide.
God, there isn't, is there?
Like when you're in a tent with 12 bakers, you've got 11 other people to hide behind 100%. And in and around. And you can just kind of like, don't look at me, don't look at me. But suddenly I've now got 4 cameras at every angle, they can see all of it, the chin and everything. And I'm like, guys, come on. Cameras up. But you can, and so you start feeling really self-conscious. And it dawned on me when there's this moment when you're doing a cookery show where it's like busy, go, we're blocking the recipe, we're making sure the set's clean and tidy and wiped down, and everybody's just like, it's like mayhem for about an hour.
Okay.
And then they say action, and then it's you. So they do their job together, and then I do mine. And then they're working, but they're doing it quietly. And I've got the floor. Now, I wish my life, like sometimes when I'm in the house with the kids, I'm like, if life was like that, where I'm like, action, everybody listens. It doesn't happen like that. So to have all that attention on me is really scary.
I bet.
And what I found really helped very early on was to watch myself back. And ask myself, like, are you, like, I could see very early on when I started filming, I was suppressing my sense of humor. I was suppressing who I was because I felt like there needed to be this very instructional kind of, although I've always had fun, I found like I was always suppressing the fun, and I was always kind of suppressing even the color. If you look at like my very early shows and these shows now, like they've changed so much because I've taken control over that, because for me, that's really a big part. And for me, I think growing up within a community where kind of having a voice and suppressing your feelings and emotions was a big part of being raised within that community, I found myself doing that quite a lot, questioning myself and suppressing these emotions and suppressing my need to be fun and like just being myself. And I realized that, I can be multidimensional. I don't have to be one-dimensional. I don't have to be what everybody thinks I should be. And there was a switch in my head after watching some of it back saying, just be yourself. And genuinely in that moment when I was able to be myself, I got the best out of myself. I got the best out of the recipe. And I always feel like when I'm talking to camera, I'm talking to the person watching. And I hope that shows. I really hope that shows.
Yeah, it's like you just stepped into what you were meant to do. I know that I can only imagine the hard work that's gone into it, the learning curve, the starts and stops, the kind of recalibrations. But to see you now at this place, I can't imagine what else you would be doing. This is it. You are in your lane. You are doing it so beautifully and so well, and it shows. It seems like you're having fun. It seems like you love it.
I do.
And that you have a comfortable relationship with your craft, your crowd, your audience, your team. It feels natural. It feels, and sometimes it doesn't, So, sometimes you can watch a show and it feels a little stiff, not yours. Others, I just kind of want to go, can I just rub your shoulders?
Yeah. I think now, sort of 6 years later, I think the reason why I'm even more comfortable is that I'm not shy to say, no, that's not going in. Good. No, take that out. Yes. This is what we're doing. This is how it's happening. Yes. This is what I'm saying. So I think having that control has meant that I'm able to be myself fully. And my husband always laughs and he says, you are literally that goofball at home.
Perfect. That's a nice compliment, isn't it? Yeah. Now I am who I am. That's just, there's not like a camera Nadiya and a home Nadiya. It's just, this is who you are. Yes, and that has enough gas in the tank for the long haul, right? If you were having to manufacture a personality or be a certain way that wasn't really true to who you were, I can only imagine how exhausting that would just, that's too hard.
That's too much hard work. That's really exhausting, that is. And I just couldn't do that. And it's lovely because as we've had new members in the family, like my brother got married, like before my brother got married, I was just Nadiya off the telly to her.
Sure.
And then he got married and he's like, and when she said to me, oh my gosh, you're just like that. You're just like that. You're just exactly the same. I was like, thank you. That's all I need. Like,
such
for
a
me,
nice compliment.
as when my sister-in-law said that to me, I was like, okay, now I'm happy because I am genuinely the person. And I meet loads of people when I'm out and they always say, oh, you're just like how you're on telly. Nice. And that to me is a compliment.
Yeah. Oh, you just couldn't hear anything better than that. I want to switch real quick before we wrap it up to talk kind of about Nadiya at home. Yeah. So obviously you mentioned earlier, you have 3 beautiful kids. What are you hoping for them as they're kind of watching you? I mean, you've done all this on their watch. You were just mom, and now you belong to the rest of us. You have had an incredible arc that is special, not common. And so what are you hoping that they take away from watching you flourish, from watching your star rise? Because I know it doesn't feel like it, but you just don't have much time left with them. They're almost there. You're 4 or 5 years away from launching a couple of them, which goes away this fast. I mean, it's so quick. And so what are you hoping that they walk away with and say, here's what I learned from watching my mom?
See, we had a really funny conversation and we were sat at the dinner table and my little girl she sings and she acts and she's into musical theatre and she's done a few bits. And so we were sat at the dinner table and I was talking about work and my boys said, gosh, Dad, the men are the bums in this house. The women are so successful in this house.
That's hilarious.
And that really made me laugh. And I said, guys, you're not bums, maybe just a little bit, but just not you're not that bad. But they make me laugh, my kids do, because you just never know whether you're doing it right or whether you're doing it wrong. Sure. And it's, as parents, we're constantly questioning what we're doing. And we have a firm rule in our house. We kind of say, we're getting it wrong together. They get it wrong. I get it wrong. And we this is the first time we're ever going to do this. First and last time I'm going to be a parent, and first and last time they're ever going to be children. And somewhere in between getting it wrong, we're going to get it right and meet in the middle together. And so I suppose just taking away that responsibility of trying to get everything right has really helped in my career with my children over the last 5 years. And somebody said, as they go old, somebody once said to me, as they get older, they need you less. And I'm finding that to be completely untrue.
Same.
As they get older, they need you so much more. It's more than just feeding them and playing with them and getting them to bed on time. It's bigger than that. So, but in answer to your question, somebody asked my son once, what does your mum do? And there was this look on his face because he just assumes that everybody knows what I do.
Yeah.
And he just said, he was asking, do you know? No, okay, she doesn't. They don't know who my mum is. So he's like, and he couldn't think of what I do. And he must have been about maybe 10 at the time.
Okay.
And the teacher was asking all the kids, what do your parents do? And they were all talking about their parents' occupations and what they would like to do. And he said, can you come back to me, miss? And so they went round and came back. And I was like, And it took him a long time. He was having a good old think. And he couldn't think of what I do because I don't really have a job title. Not really. Like I kind of do now, but at the time, I don't think he couldn't work out what I do. And then he just said, she lives her dreams.
Oh, that's great.
And that, one second, just get rid of it. But he said, she lives her dreams. And I think for me, in that moment,
I love it.
That was like, what do I want for my kids? I want them to see me live my dreams in the hope that one day they will live theirs. And that's all I can ever want for my kids.
Oh, I just could not possibly love that more. That is the greatest story. So happy that's what he said. It's time to spruce up your shoe game this spring, which means it's time to pick up a new pair of Rothy's. Yay! You know how I feel about Rothy's. They are the most versatile shoe in the world. And talk about comfy. I don't know how they do it, but they make Rothy's from recycled plastic water bottles, and they've managed to make the comfiest shoe I've ever owned in the most sustainable way. And another major bonus, Rothy's are fully machine washable. I literally took mine out of the dryer this morning. Just toss them in the washing machine. They come out looking and smelling good as new. Listen, if I want to feel just a little bit fancy, I slip on my leopard print Rothy's when I'm running out the door. I get compliments on these shoes every single time. I love them so much. Check out all the amazing shoes and bags and masks available right now at rothys.com/forthelove. That's Rothys, ROTHYS, rothys.com/forthelove. Style and sustainability meet to create your new favorites. I'm telling you, head to rothys.com/forthelove today. All right, back to our show. One question and then we'll wrap here. I'm thinking about my listeners right now who, when it comes to baking, and I know you hear this trope all the time that some of us are good at cooking, but we're intimidated by baking.
Yeah.
That somehow it's kind of a different beast. So when I've got folks listening right now, one feeling intimidated a little bit around the idea of baking, what would you say if you had to reach for one or two? What would be your number one tip for beginning bakers, including maybe some idea, and then this is the appliance or the tool that you just have to start out with? If they're starting from scratch, like imagine they think an oven is a cupboard. So what do you say to that person?
I still can't get my mom to bake. She's like, you bake, I don't need to bake. I was like, no,
right.
So, right. She's like, you make cake, you give me cake. That's fine. It's like, yeah, that works. But I think for anyone who's anxious in the kitchen, which I fully get, I totally understand, because they are two different skill sets. Yeah. You know, cooking, you can be a little bit more adventurous. You can bit of this, bit of that. So, you know, you can muck around in the kitchen and be a little bit more kind of, you can just be a bit more adventurous and muck around with it. Whereas with baking, it is a science. Yeah. For the most part, it's an exact science. So I can understand from people's perspectives why they might be nervous, or if they've ever made a mistake in the kitchen. I can understand why there might be some nerves there. So I think dust yourself off. And this is the kind of trick I use, especially when my kids were younger, and anyone who ever asks me, how do I get started? How do I get confident in the kitchen? You know, I think we assume that baking requires an oven. If you're nervous about baking, let's step away from the oven for just a moment, because often when you bake a cake and, you know, you take it out too early, or the oven's too hot, or the temperature's dropped, or it's not exact, that's where you have elements of mistakes and where things might go wrong. So let's take the oven away for just a second. Baking can still very much be measuring, mixing, licking the bowl and enjoying something.
Nice.
So I would go with something simple like a Rocky Road or a tiffin. And you get to do all of those things. You get to measure, you get to mix, you get to lick the bowl, and you have something delicious at the end, and you only have to put it in the fridge. So anyone who's nervous, I would say start small.
That's good.
And start making mistakes. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Yep. We must not live in a world where we say that making mistakes are bad things.
Yeah.
Making mistakes, making mistakes means when you make mistakes, you learn.
Absolutely.
And so get in there, start making mistakes. But if you don't want to, and you want a sweet treat and you don't want to make any mistakes, get in there and make some Rocky Road. And if there's one appliance or one tool that I would say to get you started, get yourself a good set of measuring scales. You want a good scale, and then you're pretty much good to go.
That's great advice. It's so true. I learned how to cook by getting everything wrong. That's how I learned. Yeah. Get it wrong. It's too hot. It's not enough salt. It's too runny. The next time you know.
Yeah. Sorry. That noise is my cat in her litter tray.
You know what? You're sharing an office with your cat. She gets to have her space as well.
I mean, I don't need to see that right now, but I might need to open a window.
Well, to be perfectly fair and in the same spot, I don't know if you've heard the noise in here, but they are birds that live in my ceiling in my outside office. So It's just, we share our spaces with animals is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm the same as you. Okay, Nadiya, we're going to wrap it up. These are just 3 off the top of your head questions that I am asking every guest in the food series. We have amazing, amazing guests in this series. They're so fun. They're all on shows like you, and it's just so delightful to talk to you. Okay, here's the first one. This is a hard question.
Yeah.
If you had to only eat one dish for the entire rest of your life.
Yeah.
Which is a mean thing to ask.
Yes, so it is. That's so mean.
It's so mean. Yes.
Like a meal.
I'm going to say yes.
Oh, that's so mean.
It is.
How can you do that?
I know.
Okay, steak and chips.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Literally never gets old.
No, steak and chips with a peppercorn sauce. Yeah.
What's your favorite cut of steak?
Sirloin. I do like sirloin. Yeah. I like it rare though. I'm a rare kind of. Oh, yeah. Same. Yeah.
And a peppercorn sauce that's just how to live. That's how to live right there.
Drink it.
Oh, so good. Okay. That's I appreciate that. Do you have a person or a place that makes that the best that you crave that particular dish from?
Me.
Yours.
Yeah.
Love it. Next. When you're too tired to cook, you're over it, you're done, you've been filming all day, whatever. And I don't mean takeout. I don't mean takeout or restaurant, but you're still at home and everybody needs to eat, but you're sick of it.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you reach for?
Okay, so there's this thing that my dad used to make when we were little, and it's my go-to. So mashed potatoes. So literally, I mean, it could be instant mash out of a packet. It doesn't matter. I'm happy with that. But I can, you take instant mash out of a packet, but you mix it with not water, hot milk, melted butter.
Yes.
And then to make it really rich and creamy, I always add a couple of tablespoons of mayonnaise. Because you get oh my goodness, mayonnaise in mash is just do it. Put mayonnaise in your mash. It is out of this world. It takes it to somewhere completely new. And then mashed potato, and then I pour tomato soup on top, and then you pour hot tomato soup on top, and then lots of grated cheese. That is my go-to comfort, all in a bowl, sit in front of the telly, I can't be bothered to cook meal.
Okay, I'm absolutely fascinated. So I always put sour cream in my mashed potatoes, but mayonnaise I'm doing that next time. I'm doing that. I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to tell you my exact thoughts on the mayonnaise mashed potatoes. Okay. I like that. Yes. It's almost like a grilled cheesy, soupy version of, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Would never think to do that.
Get the cheese. Normally I'd have a cheese toasty with tomato soup, but you're getting all of that, but with potatoes.
How could that be bad?
It's so comforting. And as much as I love being in the kitchen, if I'm not getting a takeaway, that's what I would reach to straight away. still slightly home cooked, but
Yeah.
it's warming, and it reminds me so much of my dad.
Okay. This is the last question. And I actually ask all my guests this question, and you can answer it literally however you would like to answer it. You can answer it in a serious, sober-minded way. You can answer it in a silly, ridiculous way. It's completely up to you. This is a question. What is saving your life right now?
What is saving my life right now? Locks on doors.
Oh, man.
Locks on doors. I say that, but I've always got a child knocking on my door saying,
oh, no, it won't stop them from knocking, but it will stop them from just barging in.
No, yeah. So I now lock my bedroom door to go to the bathroom. So I lock locks on doors because that and just sweets. Like genuinely, whenever I'm really like having a dip in my day, I go for the sweetie jar, and often I lock my bed. I take the sweetie jar with me, then I lock the door and say I'm going to the bathroom and sit with the sweetie jar in my room. Because what I'm finding right now is that it's really hard to find any time to ourselves, just like individually.
Yes,
and actually, I feel really guilty because I feel bad that I'm looking for me time, but I do need it for my sanity, just to spend a couple of, just like, even if it's half an hour. And the locks on the doors are really helping me because like sometimes I even tell them, I think I'm going to go and have a nap. And I don't. I lay in bed and I scroll through Instagram. And I don't like anything because they'll watch and say, oh, you're supposed to be sleeping. Why are you liking stuff on Instagram? I just do it. I love it. I lie. Lying is getting me through lockdown. There you go. That's the answer.
This is the perfect answer to revisit later when lockdown and quarantine and pandemic is over. Like the things that we were loving during this season were locks and lies. That's what we needed. That got us through. Like later, these kids will go back to school and we'll go back to our workplaces. But for right now, when we're all in this together all the time, 24/7, locks and lies. That's what I'm walking away with. Okay, Nadiya.
And mayonnaise in your mash.
Oh, no. And of course that. I will never forget that as long as I live. Can you please just tell my listeners as we sign off where they can find you, where they can follow you, what your handles are, and then maybe just like what it is you're working on right now?
So I am on Instagram at Begum Nadiya and Nadiya Hussain Official. So you can find me on those two. And you can find me on Twitter, Nadiya Jamia Hussain. That's kind of mostly where I post all of my bits about what I'm doing. And you can also find me on nadiyahussain.com, which is my website. So I'm usually quite active on there, so I usually respond, and I also respond to everybody.
You do?
Yeah, I sit there and try and respond to as many people as I possibly can. So yes, so you can find me on social media, and I mean, my Nadiya Bakes is out in July in the States, so I'm very excited about that. And of course, Nadiya Bakes is on Netflix right now, so yay!
Great.
But yes, I mean, you asked me like, what am I up to next? And the truth is, I'm mostly winging it. I don't actually know
Totally.
I'm mostly winging it. I don't actually know. And I think especially this year where we've had such uncertainty, I've learned that planning is great, but actually sometimes you just take one day at a time. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. And as long as I continue to do this job, not only to fulfill my need to share cooking and baking and being in the space that I love the most, but also for representation. I hope that I can continue to do this for as long as possible.
Me too. I'm cheering you on in every possible way. I'm so happy for you, proud of you. So it's so great to watch you go and to watch you shine and succeed. It's just absolutely fantastic. Thank you for making us happy. Thank you for bringing a lot of joy to us. And I think you're doing exactly what you're hoping you are doing. We are delighted listeners and readers and watchers. And so thanks for being on the show today. I'm so happy to have met you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, get thee to Netflix. If you are new to Nadiya, you can watch her rise on Bake Off Season 6. And then you can watch her newest show, Nadiya Bakes, and you will love her so dearly. She is really just a bright and shiny star. I loved what she said, not just about cooking. I loved what she said about life. I loved what she said about parenting. I loved what she said about failing and trying again. She's a good one. She is a good one. And don't listen to what she said about Paul. He may not be her type, but he is everybody else's type. Oh man, he's got that dreamy face. It's really the eyes. I don't know what to say about it. If you don't know Paul on Break Off, just go Google it right now and you'll see what I'm saying. Delightful. You guys, this series is so much fun. I am having the greatest time talking to the food people. You know that I am. And there's so much more to come. We stacked this series with the best of the best. And it's fun to talk about food after such a hard year. Do you know? We've talked about so many important things that matter and that count. I'm so happy that we could use our space together to host incredibly important conversations. And also, it's so fun to talk about food and kitchens and gathering. It just feels nourishing after what has been a really long and a hard year. So more to come. If you have not already subscribed to the For the Love podcast, go do it. It's just an auto download for you every week. You don't even have to work for it. It'll show up for you. And we're so happy to bring it to you week after week. So Laura and her crew and Amanda and I love you. We love this community. We love this podcast. And we love every minute of work that goes into it. So you're the greatest. You guys come back next week. More to come. You're going to love it. See you then.